Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we want to discuss how to interview like a pro. How are you going to boost your confidence in the interview process to make sure that you get the job? So always remember, interview process is to get the job. The resume is to get you the interview. Interviews to get you the job. So we are going to go through this process today to make sure that you are prepared and how to do this interview. And again, this is a series of about two or three or four that I will do in terms of different types of interview process, different types of series you can go through in terms of understanding this. But we're going to start with basically just making sure that you can boost your interview confidence today. So how do we begin? So what we're trying to think of right here is what is the purpose of the interview? As I mentioned, right? That is to allow the employer to determine you as an applicant, your personality, your skills, whether it fits with the job, and allow the applicant to determine is this the job? Do they want to work for this employer? Do they like the process? So again, always remember this is a two-sided affair. There's a lot of applicants. Who I believe most applicants don't really believe that they have a say in the interview process. You want to be certain that you're a good fit for this organization, basically. So there's two sides to this. So the applicant is thinking, okay, is this it? Do I want to work for this company? Is a good fit, and vice versa. The company is making sure that are you a good fit, or your experience work, or your personality work, all the different things they want to make sure that's a fit. So how do we go about thinking of the interview process, preparing for it? So I would always start with the research, basically making sure that you're looking at the organization, doing some research before you get there, sector knowledge, understand the sector that you're applying to, really dive deep into the knowledge base of it, understanding current matters that's going on around the sector, all those unique things that will differentiate you from other candidates, materials that you're going to need. So you're thinking of, okay, what am I going to need? What do I need to look at? What do I need to read? What do I need to understand? It could be some financial reports that you're looking at, you're dissecting, you're thinking about. It could be some of those stuff, right? How do you prepare logistically? So you're thinking about it, right? So logistically, what am I going to put together? Potentially your clothes, what do you want to wear? All these things you're thinking about in terms of, okay, I'm going to prepare for this interview. It's a day, it's tomorrow, it's 2 days. So technically, I would say give yourself a few days just to do the organizational research and the sector research, understand the knowledge base, discuss it with other people. You could probably even go on social media and just see what other people are saying about the sector and even write your own piece on it, right? Write a blog piece around the sectors just so that you can improve your knowledge. And like last but not least, like I said, right, think of the clothes and the appearance. What is this particular sector around? Do they really want you to be casual? What is the dress code? So again, just try to understand the dress code norms in the organization, and therefore it will prepare you better in terms of how are you going to dress, how are you going to prepare for that. So typically, depending on where you are in your career path, the interview can have different stages. It could be just like for most people one interview process, but I doubt it. So there's always an initial screening, and that's sometimes could be a phone call, a video. So again, be prepared for that. Just try thinking about it. Try to understand: is this going to be what is the interview stages? Am I going to have two or three interviews? If you possibly can, what is the first interview like? Is this an initial screening, a phone call, a video call? And then once it gets past the screening, there's usually what I consider the first interview, because the usually the phone call, that first call, is not really an interview. It's really just to get a sense of whether or not they want to interview you. So that's when you go more in depth in the discussion of your qualifications, all those things. And if you provided them with a resume, it might be good just to have your resume there so that you can make sure that at least you or go over your resume the night before. That's what I would recommend. But you can just make sure that, hey, the things you're talking about and the things you're looking at is a great way to just keep that interview process going. And you can have a framework for your interview. Talk a bit around that later. We can have a framework for how am I going to approach this interview. And then if you do well, typically there's a second interview and probably a final interview. Most of the time, you're talking to the hiring manager in the final interview. Second interview, you might be in a team interview. It could be like a team that's interviewing you, probably looking at office, all different type of things that might be going on. So again, do some homework. Make sure you understand that. Talk to somebody. Reach out to somebody in the organization and just say, "Hey, listen, do you mind, we have grab coffee or we just jump on a call. I just want to ask you a few questions about the interview process that you went through so you can actually really prepare yourself." And sometimes we call these informational interviews where you just talk to someone in an organization just to get a better sense of how you can prepare well for the interview. And the final stage, the final interview process, right? You're going more into detail because the hiring manager is now talking to you about probably a specific thing. Typically, that can be somebody that works in the department that's talking to you more about specific things. So try to dive deep into a lot of these things, right? Second and final interview are really deep interview, right? You're talking to team members from more than likely the department you're going to work with. So you really want to make sure that you are on point in terms of showing them your knowledge, your skills, your understanding of the sector, understand the market, understand the industry, all these things you're making sure that you dive deep into. And then in the final interview, as they go through the discussion and more details and offer details, they might be giving it a job. Just again, just ask the right question in these times, making sure you're listening carefully to what they're saying, and you can go through that process. I typically basically think that you can create an elevator pitch. Now, again, I know the elevator pitch is created for different things, but I see it as a compelling thing you can use basically in an interview or in like a quick meet with someone, and they just probably want to get a better sense of who you are right there and then, right? But I can see where you can use it like a quick intro in an interview. And again, the way I think about it is a 30-second pitch. Make sure it's memorable, make sure it's on point and compelling, make sure that um, the listener is engaged and want to find out more about who you are, basically. So just think of it, your storytelling at this point in time, but it's a really short storytelling. You're 30 seconds to say, hey, this is who I am. And they say, oh, wow, really, really like this person. Because I typically find that first impression lasts. And most of us have all, believe me, if you walk inside and you make that first impression, there's a high probability that things will continue going in your favor and potentially get you that job. So again, I would say practice that storytelling, 30 seconds, elevator pitch that you are basically just putting out there to say, hey, this is who I am, this is who I can help. And typically you can make that the summary. So if at the top of your resume there's a little section that you should put your resume, a summary. Believe it or not, sometimes you can practice a 30-second speech and just use that as your summary so you remember what it is. And again, you can just use it in the interview. Again, there's nothing wrong with having a structured approach to this process where you're preparing and going over things over and over and over, and recycle things that you use on your resume in the interview. Because again, that's you really want to make sure that you're talking from that premise, because most people are typical like that. They will actually just look at your resume just to see what you said. Was that appropriate? Did it make sense? Does it relate to what you said on your resume and how it relates to the position you're applying to? So be okay with just like going over the resume and just making sure that you're there. So again, these are some quick tips in terms of crafting that elevator pitch. Introduce yourself really well. So in interview style, and the role, your strengths, highlights your key strengths. What are your key strengths? Who are you? What are the skills that you have? What matches? What are your career objectives? So you're like, again, those stated career objective can be the same career objective that you put on top of your resume. So that's why I'm like really doubling down on this. So just put that out there, like, okay, this is it. And then there's always like a nice call to action as you go, right? Especially at the end of this elevator pitch, there's a nice call to action, like telling them if they need to reach out to you for more information, please free to, yeah. And just a call to action, right? Always leave with a call to action at the end of the interview, or if it's just a quick thing that's going on, especially I would say the elevator, which is really, really important in that initial interview. The elevator pitch, again, I'll say it one more time, really, really important in that initial interview because it's usually short. They're usually trying to understand whether or not they want to bring you in for that first interview. So this elevator pitch type interview is really, really, really valuable. I see it as a value add in that initial interview. Learn to tell a story. Your entire interview process is a story. So really learn how to tell this story about, turn these four things into a story, right? Just really know how to tell this thing. Again, following your resume, following a method, a process, like a STAR method that focus on the situation. Basically, it's looking at it. What are the situation? How are you going to look at it? The task, the action results, and I dive deeper into this into a, later and into a different thing that I think would be valuable to you that I will share. Basically, so again, tell that story, right? Tell that story. So, what is the story framework, right? So, I personally like the STAR method. Basically, I believe this is a good framework to help you, especially people who are probably not seasoned in their interview process. It's really good just to have a framework to help guide you until you get better, better, and better. So I like this process, and I still use this process, quite frankly. Situation, task, action, result, right? So situation typically set the scene for it, and again, I think you should use the same process, the same framework on your resume and answering what you do on your resume, and then bring it back over into the interview so that you're right on point with all the things you're saying, right? The task, define the challenge, so you set the situation. So for example, you're saying something like, basically, you're working for ABC company, and this was happening, right? They were losing profit, they were losing money, or that. You're tasked with finding a solution to do that. What were the action? This is what I did. I worked with a team of 20 people. What are the results we got? So after doing all of this, share the outcome, right? We were able to improve retention by 100%. Again, just examples right here. Like I said, I will create more valuable sub dive deeper into this, into future videos around what you can do, what are some examples, what it should look like in this section in terms of the situation, task, action. Matter of fact, I will actually do one on your resume and show you how I break it down. So look out for that. I'll share that with you guys. So there are different stages of the interview. So again, like we said, right? So we looked at the initial stage, all these things. You can also, what I look at it as the screening interview, where they're trying to reduce the numbers. So some people call it the screening interview, the initial interview. And then I looked at the hiring interview, which is the rest of it that's going on, second, third, and if you have more, basically hiring interview. So that's why I break it down into two phases. So you might hear it differently. So just be aware of that as you're going through this process. So here we go again, right? Initial, first, second, final, right? So again, just think of it as the screening process, which is the initial. And like I said, the rest of me, the hiring interview is first, second, and final. If there's a first, second, and second, final, right? So there, just think of it that way. So really and truly just double down on that process. And then you have different methods going on, right? So there is online, there's in person, there's group, there's serial. So think of what's going on, right? So there's a serial process where, when I refer to a serial interview, where lots of things going on within the day, but while you're there. So you're at the, see, you go, example, you at Google, you go to Google corporate office, and you're there and they're interview back to back interview, or you can be having multiple throughout a week or things like that, right? So there's telephone, there's group or panel interview. So again, you basically reaching out to someone just to talk to them, really and truly just to ask, okay, what was your interview process like? And preferably somebody who work in your sector and even in the department that you want to work. That would be really great, right? Because that way you will really understand what the department is looking for and whether or not they're going to do all of the above or just probably two or three. So you get a good sense of that. So here, I would advise you basically go to LinkedIn, which you probably should have done already. Basically, but again, I will actually have a video that you can explore in terms of networking and using social media to do things like this. So this will be great for you just to understand what is the best practice for this particular sector, and more important, this company, and equally important, the department of this company. So, like we said, types of interview, they're structured, semi-structured, and behavior. So you'll see these things come up and you might not sure. So some people are really attuned to it. I believe you should go over different types of stuff so you know what's going on, right? So the structure is really okay. Here are the questions, typical questions that you see, basically, and we'll talk about interview question in a minute. And the candidate answer these questions. Then there's semi where they're looking at okay, mix, standard question, follow up question. Someone might ask a question, and then someone else might follow up on the same question. So you're saying, oh, okay, fine. They might give it to you a different way just to see if you understand it really clearly. So again, just be mindful of that. Stop, think about it for a few minutes, and then answer. And then there are also behavioral questions, which are really just talking to you about past experiences, the action. And again, this is where I would go back with the STAR method in answering, especially behavioral question, just to answer it again, right? Talk about what does the situation look like? Okay, here we go with the task. How did you work around that? What are some of the things that you did to get in terms of the action, and then what the results, and just showcase your results and basically talk about that. Again, not in a bragging way, but just let them see that there are some results come from what you did. So, these are the type of interview question: behavioral question, competence based, situational based questions. So again, just think about how to prepare for these questions, or as you're going through them. Critical thinking, problem solving, all these things. Just again, there's so many questions out there. You break. My standard approach is to have a set of questions that are fit into these categories and just practice them as you go accordingly based on the sector. Easy way to do this is probably just ask ChatGPT for a list of questions in this category. Basically, I will create some prompts that you guys can use. So I create prompts for each one, and then you guys can look at it. And again, I think this will be valuable for you, so I'll do that. And by the way, if you think you would like more of these things, really just drop me, DM me, or send me an email, and basically I will just create a video on some of those stuff. So when we're thinking of challenging, difficult questions that you might get across, personally, we're at some point in your career path, your journey, you're going to have these career journey. You're going to have these really challenging, difficult questions. When don't jump to answer. Don't just like quickly. Oh wow, this is great. I'm answering this question. No, take your time. Like really listen. Consider the question. Ask yourself. Okay, 2 3 seconds won't make a difference, like just there. If you feel like you're not sure of the question, just ask for clarification. That's okay. Just like, are you saying this, or is it possible? So ask for clarification. Always pause for a few minutes. It's perfectly okay just to stop and just like think about it for a few seconds, quite frankly, and then just answer. And again, always, no matter what, just respond honestly, positively, right? Just like positively respond to this pretty honestly and get that done. Right. And again, I want to emphasize, like, really think about it. Pause. Don't be nervous. Don't be like rush to pause and just positively answer that question. So if you notice, I am really reiterating this process of crafting, using the star method to dive deep down into this, because I find that it works and it gives you this framework to work. So basically, it's just again the situation set the context for the story, right? So it's just like, okay, it's very challenging now. So here we go, basically. And again, describe how challenging it was, what it was, what are the actions that you took to break this thing down, basically. And then highlight the outcome and what you learned, right? Highlight the outcome. And in this case, I'm adding what you learned to, because again, because it's challenging, I'm assuming that at this level, you're really moving up the corporate ladder, and therefore it might be essential just to just said, okay, here's the outcome, but also here's what I learned. And then that would be great. So there's some, I give you a few right here. Like I said, I can create more, but here's an example that I can create, right? So it's just like, on my previous job, we faced this, and you kind of just like that, right? So on a major launch, what was the task, right? So as the project lead, we basically um, decided how to respond to this quickly by keeping the client informed. Action, right? We cross-functional team to look at the cause, implement some temporary fix, and then communicate transparently to the stakeholder. What are the results, right? 24 hours, project launch was back on track, basically. So it's really important that you have a framework for answering it, so it lays out. And again, unfortunately, you probably can't have this written down in front of you. So it's best that you practice this and really understand it. And it might not flow fully, but that's okay, right? That's okay. It's just having a framework. So you're not going to sit there and say situation, right? And it's just, again, just be mindful that you're not going to sit there and say situation. No, you're just like talking about what you do. And again, it's just a story. Just be comfortable, just like talking about what it is. And it shouldn't be something you're making up, right? I'm creating these things. It shouldn't something that you made up. It should be something that you actually did. So it's easy for you to talk about it. Basically, should be something that you did and you can just do it, right? So if you're there and you made something up and you're lying about it, obviously it's not going to be authentic. So that's a problem, basically. So again, this must be something that you did, like, oh, this is what we did, and therefore you can talk about it pretty easily. But it's just in your head, there is this framework that you created that help you guide it. And if you run into a problem, you can always say, in your head, you're talking about the star method is, oh, situation, task, action, result. And then you start thinking about, okay, what do they do? And again, you should have this prepared long before, basically. And that's how you go about it. At the end of it, you should always ask the questions. And I find that a lot of people just, I don't know why, but tend to want to ask really weird questions, right? There's no need to ask about your paycheck or all those things, or when do you get paid. You're going to get paid. So there's no need to do that, right? To me, that's a no-no, right? So really relatable, relevant question that makes you stand out, right? What you're asking: company culture, some values, the environment, the role that you might be playing. What are the growth opportunities and prospects, right? Talk about the team dynamics, how that play, what are collaboration likes. So they really they're sitting there, they're interviewing you, and you're asking these questions, and they're looking, oh wow, that's very thoughtful, all these wonderful things, and therefore put you in a good position to get the job. And whatever you do, just really follow up. I find a lot of people don't do that because they feel like, oh wow, they might not get the job, or they feel, no, it's okay, like really okay for you just to sit back and say, follow up, show gratitude, interviewer, show gratitude, right? And I think more importantly, highlight how you fit, basically, and reiterate your interest, like really and truly reiterate your interest, right? Let them know that you seriously want this job and you're a good fit, right? So basically, and then ask what are the next steps, right? Like, what are the next steps? Basically, what are the timeline for making decisions? You have a sense of that. Again, all of this is just showing interest, showing that you really want a job, you're a good fit. Because this is the moment to do that, right? To like highlight the follow up process. And a lot of people don't do it because they probably think they didn't do well in the interview. But I would recommend that you do that, right? So this is setting up if you need to, an email, like basically a job reference email, if you need to, just give you an example right there. It doesn't have to be, but just in case you need to just have this process going for you right there. I'm also providing you with some questions that, basically they might ask so you can practice. Again, these are the really structured standard questions that you'll see. Just prepare them, prepare yourself equally well, basically by preparing these things and practicing basically some other sample questions basically that might be a little bit more tricky. Those are the ones you stop to think about a little bit sometimes, but again there are some simple ones inside it at the same time. So right, so I'm just providing a few questions that you can practice, but again you can practice a lot more, basically just to get a sense of who you are and why it makes sense. All right, great. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave questions or comments. Basically, I'm happy to do that. And please do me a quick favor if you can, because it helps us bring you more rich content. Please subscribe. It would be awesome. It would be wonderful because the more you subscribe, the more I can bring you really rich content around these things that we're doing and trying to help you guys in a very difficult job market, find jobs, build your career path around skills and all those things. So this should be good. Again, if you need to reach me, feel free to follow me on social media. Love for you to again to subscribe, and we will have more what I think thoughtful things that you can use. Basically, thanks for joining us, and I'm providing you with a few little things that you can use at the end of this thing. So that would be great for you guys. Have a wonderful time, basically, and good luck. Thank you so much.